My husband missed our baby's birth because he was with his mistress. Part 1. Hook. I am Joanna, a 32-year-old labor and delivery nurse from Seattle. The irony of my story still stings. After helping countless women bring new life into this world, I delivered my own baby completely alone. During the most vulnerable moment of my life, I discovered my husband was with another woman. The betrayal was exposed in the most dramatic way possible, with even his own family turning against him. Before I share how I discovered my husband was with another woman while I was bringing our son into the world, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal. Part 2. The perfect life before. For 8 years, I dedicated my life to helping mothers through their most challenging and rewarding moments. I loved being a labor and delivery nurse, guiding women through pain into the miracle of motherhood. I never imagined I would one day be on the other side of that experience in the worst possible way. I met Mark at a hospital charity fundraiser 5 years ago. He was charming, confident, and passionate about his work as a pharmaceutical sales representative. Our eyes locked across the room during the silent auction, and by the end of the night, we were inseparable. He asked for my number as he walked me to my car and called the very next day to ask me to dinner. Our romance was a whirlwind. We spent every free moment together, sharing dreams over coffee hiking trails on weekends and staying up late talking about our hopes for the future. Mark wanted 3 children and a house with a big backyard. I wanted a partner who understood my demanding schedule and valued family as much as I did. We seemed perfect for each other. Within 6 months, we were deeply in love. Mark proposed during a surprise weekend getaway to the Oregon coast, down on one knee at sunset, with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. I said yes without hesitation. 3 years ago, we had a small, intimate wedding ceremony at my parents' lake house. Only 50 guests, but it was everything I had dreamed of. My father cried as he walked me down the aisle, and Mark's face, when he saw me in my dress, is something I thought would sustain me through any hard times ahead. After the wedding, we bought our dream home in a neighborhood known for good schools. It was a 3-bedroom craftsman with a front porch where I imagined rocking future babies to sleep. Mark painted the entire interior himself, surprising me with accent walls in my favorite colors. We planted a garden together and bought furniture that would last for years. Our relationship seemed solid and supportive. Mark would leave little notes in my lunch bag when I had early shifts. I would record his favorite shows when he was traveling for work. We had inside jokes and silly traditions like making pancakes every Sunday morning while dancing to 80s music. His parents, Richard and Patricia, welcomed me into their family with open arms. Patricia taught me how to make family recipes and included me in their holiday traditions. Richard, a retired surgeon, loved talking medicine with me and treated me like the daughter he never had. Mark's sister Amanda quickly became my closest friend and confidant. 2 years younger than Mark, she was spunky and outspoken. We went for weekly coffee dates and texted constantly. She was the sister I never had, and our bond grew independent of my relationship with Mark. After our first anniversary, we decided to start trying for a baby. We both wanted to be young parents with energy to keep up with our children, but months passed without success. 6 months, a year. 18 months of negative tests tracking ovulation and growing disappointment. The fertility struggle tested our relationship, but also seemed to strengthen it. Mark held me through nights of tears. I researched options and created charts. We supported each other through the emotional roller coaster of hoping and then facing disappointment month after month. When the positive pregnancy test finally appeared after our second round of fertility treatments, our joy was explosive. Mark spun me around our bathroom, both of us crying and laughing. We waited until the 12-week mark to tell our families, making the announcement at a Sunday dinner with both sets of parents. Mark threw himself into preparations with enthusiasm. He came home with tiny shoes and stuffed animals. He attended the first ultrasound, squeezing my hand when we heard the heartbeat. We spent evenings debating names and researching the safest car seats. When we found out we were having a boy, Mark immediately started talking about fishing trips and baseball games. Amanda planned an elaborate baby shower with games and decorations that took her weeks to prepare. Our nursery was painted a soft blue with cloud details that Mark spent an entire weekend perfecting. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Looking back, the warning signs started around my 5th month of pregnancy. They were subtle at first. Mark began working late more often. He seemed distracted during our prenatal appointments, checking his phone while the doctor was speaking. Twice he missed ultrasound appointments due to last-minute work emergencies. At the time, I dismissed my concerns. The pharmaceutical industry was competitive, and Mark was up for a promotion. I told myself it was normal for partners to react differently to pregnancy. Besides, my hormones were making me more emotional and perhaps overly sensitive. I convinced myself everything was fine. By the time I reached 7 months, I was glowing with the joy of impending motherhood. My belly had popped, and feeling our son kick filled me with wonder. On the surface, we were the perfect expectant parents, but beneath that picture-perfect facade, a distance was growing between us. A distance I was trying desperately to ignore. Part 3. Growing Distance. Entering my 3rd trimester brought new physical challenges. My feet swelled after long nursing shifts. Sleeping became difficult as I struggled to find a comfortable position. Heartburn kept me up at night. More than ever, I needed my husband's support and understanding. Instead, Mark became increasingly absent. His business trips multiplied. 2 days in Chicago, 3 days in Boston, a week in San Diego for a pharmaceutical conference. When he was home, he was distracted constantly on his phone or laptop claiming work emergencies. One Tuesday evening, we were scheduled to attend our first birthing class. I left work early, showered, and waited excitedly for Mark to pick me up. 30 minutes past our meeting time, he called claiming a client crisis needed immediate attention. I attended alone, surrounded by couples practicing breathing techniques together, fighting back tears of embarrassment. My colleagues at the hospital started noticing Mark's absence. During a staff lunch, my friend Tara gently asked if everything was okay at home. I defended Mark vigorously, explaining his heavy workload and travel schedule. But the concern in her eyes made me wonder if I was making excuses for something more worrisome. Patricia, my mother-in-law, stepped in to help with nursery preparations when Mark was unavailable. She assembled the crib while I organized tiny clothes in the dresser. As we worked, she casually mentioned how demanding Mark's father had been during her pregnancies, suggesting this was normal male behavior. I appreciated her support, but her need to explain away Mark's absence only heightened my anxiety. One evening, while doing laundry, I noticed an unfamiliar perfume scent on Mark's dress shirt. When confronted, he became immediately defensive, claiming it must have been from hugging his administrative assistant during her birthday celebration. The explanation seemed plausible, but his quick anger at my question left me unsettled. Text messages started appearing on his phone at odd hours. Mark would step outside to take calls, speaking in hushed tones. When I entered the room, he would quickly end conversations or switch screens on his laptop. The credit card statement arrived with charges I couldn't explain. Expensive restaurants on nights Mark claimed to be working late. A jewelry store purchase I never saw. When questioned, he said it was a gift for his mother's upcoming birthday still 2 months away. 6 weeks before my due date, I finally gathered the courage to voice my concerns. We sat at our kitchen table one Sunday morning, pancakes growing cold between us. "Have you fallen out of love with me because I'm pregnant?" I asked, tears already forming. Mark looked shocked. "That's crazy talk, Joe. You're just emotional because of the hormones. Everything is fine. Then why are you never home? Why do you hide your phone? Why don't we talk anymore?" His face hardened. "I work my ass off to provide for you and the baby, and this is the thanks I get." Pregnancy paranoia. Really mature, Joanna. The conversation devolved into Mark listing all the ways I had changed during pregnancy. More demanding, less understanding of his work. Too emotional. By the end, I was apologizing to him, confused about how my concerns had been twisted around. Later that week, Amanda came over to help organize baby supplies. I confided my worries to her, watching her face carefully for reactions. "Mark has always been a workaholic," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm sure he's just stressed about becoming a dad." But there was something in her voice, a hesitation, that made me think she knew more than she was saying. When pressed, she quickly changed the subject, asking about my birth plan instead. After my breakdown, Mark made visible efforts to be more present. He came home early 3 days in a row. We had a date night where he rubbed my feet and talked about baby names again. He spent a weekend completing the nursery, assembling the stroller, and installing the car seat base. We reviewed our birth plan together, and he promised to keep his phone on 24/7 as my due date approached. For a brief moment, I thought we had turned a corner. Then came the announcement. "They need me in Phoenix for a big client presentation," he said 2 weeks before my due date. "Just 3 days. He'll be back well before the baby comes." "But what if I go into labor early?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "First babies can come anytime." Mark took my hands, looking directly into my eyes. "I would never miss our baby's birth, Joe. I promise. He'll have my phone on 24/7. If anything happens, he'll be on the first flight back. I swear." I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. So I nodded and helped him pack, ignoring the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. As I folded his shirts into his suitcase, I noticed he was packing nicer clothes than usual for a business trip. When questioned, he mentioned a formal dinner with executives, brushing off my confusion with a quick kiss goodbye. Part 4. The Birth and Betrayal. My water broke at 3 in the morning, 1 week before my due date. I was alone in our bed, having fallen asleep watching television while waiting for Mark to call with an update on his trip. The rush of fluid woke me from a fitful sleep, and I knew immediately what was happening. I called Mark's phone, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Tried his hotel. No answer. Panic rose in my chest as contractions began mild at first, but quickly intensifying. With shaking hands, I called Amanda. "It's time," I gasped between contractions. "I can't reach Mark." She arrived at our house 20 minutes later, helped me finish packing my hospital bag, and guided me to her car. Between increasingly painful contractions, I kept trying Mark's phone, each unanswered call cranking my anxiety higher. Arriving at the hospital where I worked felt surreal. Colleagues I normally worked alongside were now caring for me, their faces showing both professional calm and personal concern. Dr. Reynolds, the obstetrician I had selected months ago, examined me and confirmed I was already 4 centimeters dilated. Hours passed in a blur of pain and disappointment. Amanda held my hand through contractions while I continued trying to reach Mark. By midday, my in-laws arrived, Patricia rushing to my side, while Richard tried calling Mark's colleagues and friends. "Where is he?" Patricia kept asking, confusion and worry etching lines into her forehead. 8 hours into labor, still no word from Mark. My contractions were coming fast and strong. The pain was overwhelming, but worse was the growing realization that my husband had abandoned me during the most important moment of our lives. My labor wasn't progressing as expected. The baby was showing signs of distress, his heart rate dropping during contractions. Dr. Reynolds explained they might need to consider a cesarean if things didn't improve quickly. "Push through the pain, Joanna," she encouraged. "You're doing great." I focused on my medical training, trying to separate myself from the situation. Breathe through contractions. Rest between them. Visualize the cervix opening. But my mind kept returning to one devastating thought: Mark wasn't coming. After 14 hours of labor with my son's heart rate becoming increasingly concerning, Dr. Reynolds made the call. "We need to get this baby out now." Everything accelerated, consent forms signed with trembling hands. Amanda suiting up to stay with me, the bright lights of the operating room, the strange sensation of pressure without pain as they worked quickly to deliver my son. Samuel Richard Parker entered the world at 9:26 in the evening, weighing 7 pounds 4 ounces. Despite the complications, his first cry was strong and healthy. As they placed him on my chest, the rush of love was immediate and overwhelming. Through tears, I studied his tiny features, noting his father's eyes and my chin. After recovery, I was moved to a private room. Amanda and Patricia took turns helping me with first feedings and diaper changes. Richard paced the hallway, making calls and checking the parking lot for any sign of Mark. The joy of Samuel's arrival was shadowed by the glaring absence of his father. 6 hours after the birth, as I dozed with Samuel sleeping in the bassinet beside me, my phone finally rang. Mark's name flashed on the screen. Joe. Hey, sorry I missed your calls. My phone died and the meeting ran late. How's everything? His casual tone, the complete lack of urgency in his voice, made my blood run cold. The baby is here? I said flatly. Samuel was born by emergency C-section 6 hours ago. There was a long pause. What? But you're not due for another week. Babies come early sometimes. Mark? You would know that if you'd been at any of our birthing classes. I'm so sorry, Joe. I had no idea. Is he okay? Are you okay? We're fine, no thanks to you. In the background of the call, I heard noises, music, laughter, not the sounds of a business hotel late at night. Richard, who had been dozing in the corner chair, was now fully alert, listening to my side of the conversation with growing concern. Where are you, Mark? I asked. At the hotel, of course. I just got back from the client dinner. Another lie. I could hear a woman laughing close to him. Richard approached, hand outstretched for the phone. Let me talk to him. I passed the phone to my father-in-law, watching his face transform from concern to suspicion as he questioned his son about his whereabouts. After hanging up, Richard sat heavily in the chair beside my bed. Something isn't right, Joanna, he said quietly. That wasn't a business call. Amanda, who had stepped out for coffee, returned to find me crying. When I explained Mark's call, she exchanged a look with her father that confirmed my worst fears. I need to tell you something, she said, finally sitting on the edge of my bed. I think Mark might be having an affair. She explained her suspicions had begun months ago. Mark mentioning the same female client's name too often. Seeing texts pop up on his phone during family dinners. A lipstick smudge on his collar at Christmas that didn't match any color I wore. I suspected, but I couldn't prove anything, she said, her eyes filled with guilt. I didn't want to upset you during your pregnancy without being certain. As the truth settled over me, I looked at my newborn son sleeping peacefully, unaware that his entry into the world had coincided with the collapse of his parents' marriage. Exhaustion hormones and heartbreak overwhelmed me, and I sobbed until there were no tears left. Part 5. The Discovery. Mark arrived at the hospital the next morning, arms laden with flowers, balloons, and an expensive-looking jewelry box. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile rehearsed. He rushed to my bedside with an elaborate show of concern. Joe, I'm so sorry. My phone died completely. The client meeting ran incredibly late, and by the time I got back to the hotel and charged my phone, it was already done. I feel terrible. He leaned in to kiss me, but I turned my face away. As he straightened up, I noticed something on his neck. Scratch marks partially hidden by his collar, but visible when he moved. Marks that hadn't been there when he left for his trip. Samuel began to fuss in his bassinet. Mark moved to look at him for the first time, his expression softening as he took in his son's features. Look at him, Joe. He's perfect. He looks just like me. I said nothing, watching Mark perform fatherhood like an actor who hadn't rehearsed enough. He held Samuel awkwardly, asked basic questions about the birth that had been covered in our classes, and kept checking his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. Throughout the day, I tried to focus on Samuel, learning his hungry cry from his tired cry, marveling at his tiny fingers gripping mine, breathing in his newborn scent. But Mark's presence was like a dark cloud, his obvious lies contaminating what should have been precious moments. Patricia arrived in the afternoon with homemade food and clean clothes for me. While helping me to the bathroom, she hung Mark's jacket in the small closet. As she did, something fell from the pocket, a hotel receipt. "What's this?" she murmured, picking it up. The paper shook in her hands as she read it. Her face paled. Without a word, she handed it to me. It was a receipt from the Grand Hotel downtown. Not in Phoenix, right here in Seattle. A king suite charged to Mark's personal credit card. Check-in yesterday at 4 p.m., the day I went into labor. When Mark returned from the cafeteria, he found his mother, father, sister, and me waiting in silence. The receipt sat on my tray table. "What is this?" I asked quietly, conscious of Samuel sleeping nearby. Mark stared at the paper, his face draining of color. That's nothing. A mistake." Richard picked up the receipt. "This shows you checked into a hotel 10 minutes from our house yesterday, not in Phoenix as you claimed. The same day your wife gave birth." Mark stammered, trying to formulate an explanation. "It was for a client. Last-minute change of plans. The company will reimburse me." Patricia stood, her hands trembling. "I called the hotel while you were gone, Mark. They confirmed you checked in with a woman. Not a group of clients. A woman." Mark looked trapped, his eyes darting between us. "This is ridiculous. You're all ganging up on me when I just missed a birth because of work." "It happens. I missed a birth." The casual dismissal of the most traumatic day of my life was the final straw. "Get out," I whispered, then louder. "Get out of this room right now." Mark looked to his parents for support, finding none. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. After he left, Amanda took my hand. "There's more we can find out if you want to know." I nodded beyond tears now. Amanda had known Mark's iCloud password since helping him set up his new phone months ago. With Richard and Patricia watching, she used my phone to log into his account and check his location history. The map showed regular visits to the Grand Hotel over the past 3 months. Always on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Never on business trips out of state, but while supposedly working late in the city. Next, she checked his messages. There were dozens from a contact listed only as Work Client L, heart emojis, explicit photos, plans for their next meeting. "It's been going on for at least 5 months, Amanda said softly. "Since your second trimester." The complete picture was devastating. While I was growing our child, dealing with pregnancy complications, and preparing for motherhood, Mark had been carrying on an affair with a pharmaceutical client. He had been with her when I went into labor. Chose to be with her rather than answer my desperate calls. Through the thin hospital walls, I could hear nurses and doctors discussing the situation. As a respected colleague, the public humiliation added another layer to my pain. Everyone would know. Everyone would pity me. That night, after my in-laws reluctantly left, I broke down completely. The night nurse Susan found me sobbing uncontrollably. Instead of just checking my vitals and leaving, she sat on the edge of my bed and took my hand. "My husband did the same thing when our daughter was born," she said quietly. 20 years ago. It nearly destroyed me. She shared her story as she helped me clean up and check on Samuel. How she discovered the affair. How she thought her life was over. How she found strength she never knew she had. "This doesn't define you or your son's life," she said firmly. "This is just the hard beginning of a better story." After she left, I lay awake watching Samuel sleep, her words echoing in my mind. When my phone buzzed with a text from Mark, I almost didn't read it. "I'm sorry things got so intense today. This should be a happy time. Can we please talk tomorrow without my family interfering? I love you and Samuel. No admission, no real apology, just damage control." In that moment, staring at his inadequate words, something shifted inside me. The original discharge plan had been for Mark to drive us home tomorrow. Instead, I texted my parents asking if we could stay with them for a while. Their immediate yes was the first step toward my new life. Part 6. The Aftermath and Confrontation. Leaving the hospital without Mark raised eyebrows, but my colleagues were discreetly supportive. Dr. Reynolds arranged for extended follow-up care closer to my parents' house. The pediatric nurse gave me her personal number for middle-of-the-night questions. Everyone seemed to understand without needing explicit explanation. My parents converted their guest room into a temporary nursery, setting up the portable crib we had packed for emergencies. Mom took 2 weeks off work to help with night feedings, allowing me to heal from my C-section. Dad made protein-rich meals and fielded phone calls, protecting me from having to explain the situation repeatedly. Those first days were a blur of physical recovery and emotional turmoil. The hormonal crash after birth combined with heartbreak left me crying at random moments. Breastfeeding was challenging my body tense with stress. Samuel sensed my anxiety becoming fussy and difficult to soothe. Through it all, Mark continued his campaign of manipulation. Flower deliveries with generic cards, stuffed animals for Samuel, text messages alternating between self-pity and proclamations of love. He positioned himself as the victim of a misunderstanding, never fully acknowledging what he had done. One afternoon, while Mom was helping me shower, Amanda arrived unannounced, her expression a mixture of determination and apprehension. "I found her," she said without preamble. "The woman Mark was with." She explained how she had gone through Mark's recent emails, finding communications with a pharmaceutical buyer named Lisa Taylor. Young single, recently relocated to Seattle from Chicago. The pieces fit. Amanda's reconnaissance had uncovered Lisa's social media accounts filled with veiled references to a relationship with a married man. Photos of champagne in hotel rooms. Captions about forbidden love. Most damning, a selfie taken in a hotel bathroom that Amanda recognized as the Grand. "She had no idea you were pregnant," Amanda said. Her posts suggest Mark told her he was in an unhappy marriage headed for divorce. Fury replaced my sorrow. The elaborate deception, the calculated lies, the manipulation of not just me, but this other woman too. All of it crystallized into rage that burned through my postpartum haze. "I want to confront him," I said, "not just with texts or calls. Face to face." My mother protested, concerned about my physical and emotional state. But Amanda supported my decision. "He doesn't get to hide from this," she agreed. We developed a plan. Patricia and Richard still had keys to our house. According to their observations, Mark had been staying there alone, Amanda monitoring his location to confirm he wasn't bringing Lisa to our home. The following Sunday, Amanda picked me up from my parents' house. Patricia met us there, having texted Mark that she was dropping off some food for him. We timed our arrival for noon when his location showed he was at the house. What we didn't expect was that he wouldn't be alone. Patricia used her key to let us in. The house was messier than it ever allowed it to be, dishes piled in the sink takeout containers on counters. As we moved toward the bedroom, I heard laughter. A woman's laughter. Amanda squeezed my hand silently, asking if I wanted to proceed. I nodded beyond fear now. The bedroom door was partially open. Inside, Mark and a slender woman with blonde hair were in our bed. My bed, where I had slept throughout my pregnancy. They were so engrossed in each other, they didn't notice us until Patricia cleared her throat loudly. The woman screamed, clutching sheets around herself. Mark bolted upright, his face cycling through shock, fear, and anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded. "I live here," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. Or did you forget that while entertaining your girlfriend in our bed? The woman turned to Mark, confusion replacing her initial shock. Girlfriend Mark, who is this? This is my wife, Joanna. Mark said, his voice small. And my mother. And my sister. Wife. The woman looked horrified now, pulling the sheet tighter. You said you were separated. You said divorce papers were being filed. Then she noticed my postpartum body still swollen from pregnancy and surgery. Oh my God, she whispered. Were you pregnant? I gave birth 10 days ago. I confirmed. While he was with you at the Grand Hotel. The color drained from her face. She looked like she might vomit. I had no idea, she said, looking directly at me. He told me you had moved out months ago, that you were already seeing other people. I would never have 3 sisters with children. I would never do this to another woman. I believed her. The horror in her eyes was too genuine to fake. Mark started scrambling for explanations, but Patricia cut him off with a raised hand. I've never been so ashamed of anyone in my entire life, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. Your father and I raised you better than this. You abandoned your wife during childbirth to be with your mistress? I don't even recognize you. Lisa gathered her clothes, dressing quickly under the sheets before sliding out of the bed. As she collected her things, she turned to me. I am so sorry, she said, tears streaming down her face. I really didn't know. He showed me your text messages, but they were fake, created conversations making it look like you were leaving him. I should have verified, should have asked more questions. She pulled out her phone, wiping tears away. Give me your number. I'll send you everything. The lies he told me. The dates we met. Whatever you need. Mark lunged for her phone. Don't you dare! Amanda stepped between them. Back off, Mark. You've done enough damage. As Lisa prepared to leave, she paused at the bedroom door. Check your security cameras, she said. I'm not the only one. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. After Lisa left, Amanda pulled up the app controlling our home security system on her phone. The footage from the past months showed Mark bringing multiple women to our house, always during my hospital shifts, always carefully timing their departures before I was due home. The betrayal was deeper than we'd imagined. While searching for evidence, I found hidden dating apps on Mark's tablet, conversations with multiple women spanning back to early in my pregnancy. This wasn't a single affair. It was a double life. Mark attempted to explain, to minimize, to deflect blame. But faced with irrefutable evidence and the united front of his mother, sister, and me, his excuses fell flat. I want you out of this house today, I said, finally. I'll be changing the locks. You can't do that. This is my house too, Richard, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, finally spoke. You can stay with Dave until this is sorted legally, he said, referring to Mark's college friend. I've already called him. He expects you in an hour. Mark looked at his father in disbelief. You're taking her side? Richard's expression was stone. There's no sides here, son. Just right and wrong. And what you've done is so wrong, I barely have words for it. As we left, neighbors were gathering on porches drawn by the commotion. News would spread quickly through our close-knit community. Mark's reputation, so carefully cultivated, would be destroyed. For once, I didn't care about appearances or others' opinions. The truth, however painful, was finally out. Part 7. Legal Battle and Rebuilding. The Monday after the confrontation, I contacted a divorce attorney recommended by a doctor I worked with. Melissa Abrams had a reputation for being ruthlessly effective, especially in cases involving infidelity and emotional abuse. She listened to my story without interruption, taking detailed notes. When I finished, she closed her notebook and looked at me directly. What do you want from this divorce, Joanna? I want my son protected. I want financial security. And I want Mark to face consequences for what he did. Melissa nodded. Then let's make that happen. The legal process began immediately. Lisa, true to her word, provided detailed documentation of her relationship with Mark, including text messages where he explicitly lied about our marriage status. She wasn't the only one. 2 other women came forward after hearing about the situation, each with similar stories of deception. Mark tried desperately to control the narrative. He told colleagues I had hormonal psychosis, claimed to friends that I had been emotionally unavailable during pregnancy, forcing him to seek comfort elsewhere. Even suggested the baby might not be his, a particularly cruel lie given our fertility struggles. Richard and Patricia countered his version at every turn. They provided statements about Mark's absence during the birth, about finding the hotel receipt, about the multiple women. Their choice to stand with me rather than their son spoke volumes to everyone who knew our families. The financial discoveries were another shock. Mark had spent thousands on his affairs. Expensive hotels, jewelry, weekend trips disguised as business travel. He had opened secret credit cards, accumulating debt I knew nothing about. Money that should have gone toward our son's future had funded his double life. The first court hearing was tense. Mark arrived with an aggressive attorney who attempted to paint me as an unstable new mother, making irrational accusations. The strategy backfired spectacularly when our judge, a woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence. "Mr. Parker," she said, her tone icy, "are you seriously trying to defend missing your child's birth because you were with another woman?" When the temporary orders were issued, they were overwhelmingly in my favor. Primary physical custody of Samuel with Mark, granted supervised visitation only. Temporary support payments significant enough to cover rent on a new place. Exclusive use of our house until it could be sold. Mark appealed the decision, claiming financial hardship. The appeal was denied when his recent purchases of designer watches and a new sports car came to light. Throughout these legal battles, I was also navigating new motherhood. Samuel had colic, crying for hours each evening. My C-section scar became infected, requiring additional medical treatment. Breastfeeding was challenging, my supply affected by stress and inadequate rest. But there were bright spots too. My parents' unwavering support, colleagues organizing meal deliveries, a nurses' support group specifically for mothers going through divorce. Each small kindness helped rebuild my faith in people piece by tiny piece. 4 months after Samuel's birth, the divorce was finalized. The terms reflected the overwhelming evidence of Mark's misconduct. The judge cited emotional cruelty during pregnancy as a significant factor in her decision. The financial settlement provided child support and alimony that would allow me to work reduced hours for Samuel's first 2 years. Selling our dream home was emotionally wrenching. Each room held memories, both good and bad. Sorting through possessions, deciding what to keep and what to let go, felt like a physical manifestation of dismantling our marriage. The nursery I'd decorated with such hope was the hardest room to pack up. During this time, Mark made one last desperate attempt to win sympathy. He claimed to have a sex addiction, checking himself into an expensive treatment facility and giving tearful interviews to friends about his disease. Few were convinced, especially when he was seen at a bar with a new girlfriend the weekend after his supposed intensive therapy concluded. The custody arrangement was perhaps the most difficult aspect to navigate. Despite everything, Mark was still Samuel's father. The court-ordered supervised visitation reflected their concern about Mark's demonstrated dishonesty and poor judgment. He was required to meet with Samuel at a family visitation center where professionals would observe their interactions. To his credit, Mark did show up for these visits, though his interest seemed to wane when he realized they wouldn't provide opportunities for reconciliation with me. Sometimes he canceled last minute. Sometimes he spent the sessions on his phone while Samuel played nearby. The supervisors noted his lack of engagement in their reports. By contrast, Mark's family remained deeply involved in Samuel's life. Richard and Patricia came over weekly bringing groceries and spending hours rocking Samuel or reading to him. Amanda became his honorary aunt, babysitting so I could shower or nap. Their continued presence was healing for both Samuel and me, a reminder that family connections could survive even the most painful circumstances. With the divorce finalized when Samuel was 4 months old, I could finally begin rebuilding our lives with certainty. Using part of the divorce settlement, I made a down payment on a small 2-bedroom condo closer to the hospital. It was nothing like our former home, but it was ours. No memories of betrayal haunted these rooms. Returning to work part-time was both challenging and healing. My colleagues welcomed me back without pity, treating me with the same professional respect as before. Caring for other mothers and babies helped reconnect me with my passion for nursing, reminding me why I'd chosen this career in the first place. 6 months after Samuel's birth, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and realized I was smiling. Actually smiling, not the forced expression I'd been wearing for others' benefit. The dark circles under my eyes were fading. My posture was straightening from its defensive hunch. Slowly, I was coming back to myself. Samuel thrived despite the chaos surrounding his early months. He rolled over early, babbled constantly, and developed a hearty laugh that could light up the darkest day. Each milestone was a reminder that life continued, that joy was still possible, even after heartbreak. The Single Mothers Support Group became a lifeline during this period. Meeting weekly in a church basement, we shared resources, childcare tips, and understanding that could only come from shared experience. There, I met Grace, a pediatric physical therapist, with a daughter 6 months older than Samuel. Our friendship developed quickly based on mutual respect and the unique bond of single motherhood. It was Grace who first suggested I might be ready to think about dating again someday. Not immediately, but as something to consider for the future. The idea seemed impossible at first. My trust was shattered, my self-confidence at an all-time low. But she planted a seed that would eventually grow into possibility. Part 8. Healing and Lessons. 2 years after Samuel entered the world, our new life had taken solid shape. Our condo, once Spartan and temporary feeling, had become a true home filled with photographs, colorful toys, and the artwork Samuel created at daycare. The walls I had initially left blank now displayed carefully chosen pieces that brought me joy. Professionally, I had not just survived, but thrived. My experience had given me a unique empathy for mothers in difficult situations. This translated into a promotion to senior nurse overseeing labor and delivery training for new staff. The income increase allowed me to create a more comfortable life for Samuel and myself. The reality of co-parenting with Mark settled into an uncomfortable but manageable routine. His interest in Samuel waxed and waned with periods of consistent visitation, followed by weeks of excuses and cancellations. The supervised requirement had been lifted after the first year, but Mark rarely took advantage of his expanded access. Samuel, now a talkative toddler with boundless energy, adapted to the inconsistency with surprising resilience. We established traditions for just the two of us. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon park visits, bedtime stories with different voices for each character. Our little family of 2 was tight-knit and loving. On Samuel's 2nd birthday, Mark made an unexpected appearance at my parents' house where we were celebrating. He brought an elaborate, expensive gift, a motorized toy car far too advanced for a 2-year-old. After the party, he cornered me in the kitchen. "I miss you, Joe," he said, his voice low. "I miss our family. I made terrible mistakes, but I've changed. Maybe we could try again for Samuel's sake." 2 years earlier, these words might have weakened my resolve. Now they simply confirmed how far I had come. "No, Mark," I said firmly. "What we had is over. Samuel deserves parents who are healthy and whole, even if they're not together. I'm not going backward." He seemed genuinely surprised by my refusal, as if he had expected me to be waiting for this moment. His inability to understand my growth underscored exactly why reconciliation was impossible. One of the most unexpected elements of my healing journey was the continued presence of Mark's family in our lives. Richard and Patricia had chosen to maintain their grandparent relationship with Samuel despite the awkwardness with their son. They came for weekly dinners, took Samuel for special outings, and never missed important milestones. At first, their presence had been a painful reminder of what might have been. Over time, it became a blessed continuity for Samuel and unexpected support for me. Patricia once told me tearfully that she considered me the daughter she always wanted, regardless of my marital status with her son. Amanda remained my closest friend. Our bond strengthened rather than weakened by the divorce. She was Samuel's godmother, in every sense present for first steps, first words, and countless ordinary moments in between. Her loyalty never wavered, even when it created tension with Mark. Despite the trauma of his birth circumstances, Samuel grew into a happy, secure toddler. His pediatrician remarked on his advanced language skills and social confidence. He approached new situations with curiosity rather than fear, a resilience I hoped would serve him throughout life. 18 months after the divorce, I cautiously accepted a coffee invitation from Michael, a single father I met during daycare pickup. His wife had died from cancer when their daughter Emma was an infant, leaving him to navigate solo parenting through grief. Our shared experiences, though different in nature, created an immediate understanding between us. We moved slowly, meeting first in playdate settings with our children present. Conversation flowed easily as we pushed swings at the park or supervised sandbox play. He listened without judgment when I shared pieces of my story, and I did the same as he talked about his loss. Friendship developed naturally before any hint of romance appeared. We traded parenting tips, emergency babysitting, and book recommendations. When Samuel had an ear infection that required a middle-of-the-night pharmacy run, Michael showed up with the prescription and stayed to help with temperature checks. The children bonded as quickly as we did. Emma, slightly older than Samuel, took on a protective big sister role. Samuel followed her adoringly, attempting any activity she tried. Their easy connection gave us space to develop our own relationship at a careful pace. 6 months of friendship passed before our first official date. My parents watched both children for an evening while Michael and I had dinner at a quiet restaurant. The conversation that night centered on our hopes for the future and the lessons of our pasts. "I never thought I'd trust again," I admitted over dessert. "After what Mark did, I assumed that part of me was broken for good." Michael reached for my hand. That's how I felt after losing Karen. Like I could never be whole again. But maybe being broken and healing leaves us stronger in those places. His understanding of loss and recovery matched my own journey. Neither of us wanted to replace what we'd lost, but rather to build something new that honored our experiences. One evening, after putting the children to bed during a movie night at my condo, Michael and I talked about the deeper lessons from our individual traumas. I learned to trust my instincts. I told him I knew something was wrong with Mark long before I had proof, but I talked myself out of it. Never again. "And I learned that life is too short for anything less than transparency," Michael replied. "Karen and I wasted time dancing around difficult topics. Now I say what I mean and ask for what I need." These shared philosophies form the foundation of our relationship. Honesty, direct communication, respect for boundaries. The very elements that had been missing in my marriage. Around this time, I received an unexpected letter from Lisa Marks' former mistress. She had moved back to Chicago married and wanted to make final amends before starting her new life. "Not a day goes by that I don't regret my role in your pain," she wrote. "Though I was deceived about your marriage, I still should have asked more questions, made more effort to verify what Mark told me. Your strength in confronting us that day changed how I approach every relationship. Thank you for your dignity in an impossible situation." Her letter provided an unexpected closure. The last person connected to my trauma had acknowledged their part and moved forward just as I had. As my relationship with Michael deepened, I reflected on the transformative journey from those dark days in the hospital to the present. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but each step had revealed strength I never knew I possessed. The woman who gave birth alone while her husband was with another woman would not recognize the woman I became. That broken, betrayed new mother could never have imagined finding joy again, creating a loving home, building a career, and opening her heart to new possibilities. The greatest gift of this journey was the knowledge that we can choose our response to even the worst betrayals. Mark chose deception and continues to live with the consequences of that choice. I chose honest rebuilding and found myself stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. Samuel will grow up seeing not a victim, but a woman who faced devastating circumstances and created something beautiful from the wreckage. He will learn that families come in many forms, that love can be lost and found again, and that integrity matters more than appearances. Giving birth alone was traumatic, but it gave me a second birth too. The rebirth of myself as a woman who would never again silence her own voice or ignore her own worth. If my story resonates with you, please know that there is life after betrayal. There is joy after pain. And sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of something more authentic and beautiful than you ever imagined possible. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this video helped you feel less alone, please like and subscribe to help others find it too. Thank you for listening to my journey from heartbreak to healing.